I'm good. Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Blood, Guts, and Thunder. First episode now, where the one who originated Blood, Guts, and Thunder is no longer with the team. So that's pretty sad. It was John Herdman, if you don't remember. He said that.
Yeah,
Um, so,
gone but not forgotten or forgiven.
yeah, how long has it been? I'm losing track here.
Did he leave? He left before the Gold Cup, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because
So I think was it?
Yellow or wait, no, he was coaching at the Gold Cup.
Okay, so that hasn't been that long. Really, Gold Cup wasn't that long ago. It was, less than 6 months ago. Which in the term of international soccer, that's not a very long time. That's only a few international windows.
Yeah, I remember he's at the Gold Cup because I changed my Discord handle to Moisey Bombito's blackmail letter, and that was Herdman. It was Herdman pulling those strings. Yeah, that Herdman was the one who shoved Bombito into the midfield. So I remember that.
Very, very clever. Yes.
Yeah, I was hoping for a chuckle.
Well, we're here and we're back.
So yeah, we've got. I mean, I feel like we should be happier than the mood is in this Skype call, but let's get into it.
Well, what? Because I'm in a dark room by myself, and we're talking about a cheery subject that is Canadian soccer.
Just feels negative. It just feels we should be happy.
Well, let's start off on a positive note. Then let's talk about the best team we have right now, and that's the women's team.
Yeah. So at the formerly known as St. Clair Place Stadium,
formerly BC Place. Oh wait, I see what you're doing. You're being clever again. Yes, formerly CS Place, now BC Place.
Yep. I'm very clever.
Yes.
Yeah. So you were a cameraman at that, weren't you? I pretend I didn't know.
Yeah. No, I outside of this show, I already work in broadcasts in various formats. I've worked NHL, I've worked CHL, I've worked NOL, CFL, UFC. Pretty much any sort of sport you can think of, I've worked in a broadcast capability, mostly as a camera operator the last few years. And I was really lucky enough, and I was really hoping to, and I did end up working the game. Christine Sinclair's final game at CS Place, now BC Place. And it was a really long day. I was with the TSN broadcast, so we weren't the main broadcasters, but we shared the feed with One Soccer and Media Pro. And I've worked with Media Pro before for the Billie Jean Cup. They're a great organization. But yeah, I was so happy to. It's probably one of the. I put a big post about it online. Probably the most important game in Canadian soccer history. I know the game itself was a friendly. The game itself was not the best. There was definitely the crowd made the game interesting when the game wasn't very interesting. Probably should have been like a 3-1 game, considering Canada had really good chances. Australia actually had a couple near the end. I thought for sure they were gonna tie it up with like a couple minutes to go. The game itself not great, but yeah, it was made great because of the fans. 48,000 people. Is that correct me if I'm wrong, biggest for a women's soccer game? Is that biggest for a women's sporting event in Canada? I don't know that one for sure, but definitely for a women's soccer game. Having 48,000 people.
You said you were like at your camera was.
Yeah, my camera was the post-game, pre-game, post-game, halftime panel. I was at the desk on camera facing the talent, and they were looking at my camera. I was the main wide camera. And yeah, no, I had a great time working with TSN, all those people involved. And I'm really happy I worked that event. I mean, again, it turned out well.
Do you sort of like, I don't know, I'm just dreading this in the future. Do you sort of like regret having a crew role in games like this, where like you'd rather be a spectator, or is that not a thing?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because when I'm working games, I'm not really watching the game, but I am lucky enough to be sort of in the position I am that I do occasionally get to at least like actually watch the game and watch what's going on, and you have to at least watch to a degree to pay attention to what's going on. You may not know, it was a little frustrating. Not everyone knew who all the players were, and they were trying to find players in warm up, and unfortunately they're all wearing Sinclair shirts. So like half the camera guys didn't know who half the players were. So in a way it shows that Canada soccer has a long way to go in this country. But yeah, it's as a fan, I think I would have enjoyed watching it, but I really wanted to be a part of it and say I was a part of it. So I think that was a bigger importance to me, to say I was actually a part of the broadcast and a part of that game in some small capacity. So that was important to me more than actually being a fan in the crowd.
No, yeah, that's obviously really valuable. So like how before we like talk about it for like 30 minutes, how good it feel do you feel like you got of the game itself?
I mean,
Like
I was at the goal end when Canada scored her only goal. So I was right there when all that went down. I was right by the corner. Every now and then when we would get corners, my camera was taken live for the corner kick a couple times. So yeah, I was right in the action. I was right by the Voyagers. I was having a great time. The Voyagers did a great job. Again, we talked a little bit off air. The game itself, and we talked about it just now on air. The game itself wasn't that great of a game in my mind. It had its moments, but it was really, you could tell it was game two of a short window and for games played. A little bit of a gas, even though I think Sinclair had even though she was obviously showing a bit of her age, she still had a bit of pep in her step and some movement. But the game itself wasn't great. But the Voyagers did a great job too to keep throughout the whole game. They were singing and dancing and clapping. They did a great job trying to get everyone involved. Yeah, I wish I could go on and on about that game, but I'm glad I worked it. It was probably one of the best games I've ever worked in my life.
how do you first thing for Sinclair, I was kind of shocked that she went off in like the was it like the 55th minute or something.
It felt pretty scheduled because even at halftime we were talking behind the scenes, being like they're like almost queuing up our rehearsals, saying okay at the between the 55 and the 65 minute, like everyone keep an eye on Sinclair because that is when she is being changed. So
Okay.
I don't know. It seems like that was if she ever starts a game recently in the past couple of years, that seemed to be kind of the role she was in, that she would start the first 65 minutes and didn't really stay on past that, I think. And I think that was really evident at the World Cup, that she didn't play a full 90. But yeah, it seemed like everyone knew that's when it was happening. So I couldn't tell you. Maybe she already said, yeah, I'm just going to do the first hour, go for a run, come off. Like she doesn't have much gas left or something. But it seemed almost predetermined, and I could be completely wrong. But just the way everyone was speaking, it seemed like, no, she's off at the 60th at the latest.
Yeah. I guess as to her performance, like on one hand, it feels like she was kind of granted like the right to play a bit more like she used to, where she's pushed up like a bit further than she probably should be at this stage in her career. But there's times when it's like I feel like this team is really gonna miss like her progressing ability. That still kind of seems unmatched in a lot of ways. Um, these sorts of like pinpoint intelligent decisions you get that it kind of feels like um, no one else can really match. But on the other
Well,
hand, we're supposed to be kind of positive. Yeah,
yeah,
what?
well, like I said, like yeah, the game itself wasn't great, but Christine Sinclair definitely showed that she still had something in her, and maybe it's easy to tell at field level, but she still made some really great plays. She was really strong in the ball, some great passes, and like she created a lot of opportunities. And I believe off the corner, it wasn't directly because of her, but she kept that sort of play alive off to the corner, put it back in, and led to the header, which led to the other header by Quinn to put it in the back of the net. So she was definitely a catalyst in that game and made the few of the only kind of like exciting moments early on, at least anyway. Um, we will be interested to see. We're gonna talk about this more, but like this team really took a step backwards the World Cup this past summer.
Yeah.
They did qualify for the Olympics, and typically they do pretty well in the Olympics. But as we talked a little bit before the show, some of my hot takes is that I don't think they're going to do very well. And is that just because Sinclair won't be part of the lineup, or is it just because the team isn't as good as we think it is, or is it because the rest of the world has caught up in women's soccer? And I think it could be a combination of all of them. But it'll be really interesting to see without like sort of, even though she'd slow down, her playmaking ability and her ability to sort of hold up play and then create plays from
We'll get there, but we gotta be positive.
it.
We gotta start off with the positive things.
Absolutely.
The first thing is since the She Believes Cup, the women's team has been playing in a back three. Um,
And we love our back threes in Canada.
yeah, and on one hand, it feels weird to mix up the part of the team that's been so consistent, the back line. But I guess like after the Australia game, it's just felt different. Like it's felt like um, that sturdiness isn't always going to be there. And like I've liked what I've seen from it so far. Um, I guess the first thing it must feel pretty shitty if you're like a professional player in women's soccer, and this happens like a non-zero amount where you're playing behind like a college player like Jade Rose. Um, but I thought like she was. I hate to compare everyone to like a men's player, but she was like a really effective, good version of Alistair Johnston.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I mean,
and
there seems to be a lot of, if we want to start talking about the positives, because we talked briefly of negatives about the women's team
yeah,
for a brief second there. She's definitely a positive. And I think there's a lot of young players who are already known, but there's some coming through the pipeline that are really interesting to watch, and they're gonna drive the play forward. And I think, yeah, it's a little, they're not playing at a pro level like you're saying. Like there's a lot of professionals on the team already, and these sort of college players coming through. But that's just that's international soccer, baby. You're gonna get players from all over, and then they're gonna gel together as a team or not. And yeah, that's definitely a reason to not be concerned as some players like Rose and a few other younger ones who are coming up. It's mistaking me. There's the Whitecaps FC academy player who got called up through to the women's team. There's an international window. I could be wrong. I should have looked at her name beforehand.
that is oh boy, Geneva Hernandez.
Yeah,
Great.
there's definitely a future. It's just great timing to see with one superstar dipping out and more coming up. Yeah, it's hard to look into the mind of a professional athlete. Maybe it's frustrating on a surface level, but once you get there, you're all on the same team. I mean, I'm sure up until a certain point, Davies felt that way playing with a bunch of MLS players, even though, again, we'll save the negative stuff and the men's stuff later on. It doesn't really matter where you're from when you're playing on the same international team. You just got to get the job done. It's like watching the Spengler Cup team of Canada. It's a bunch of guys from all over the place.
Yeah. Looking at just fixating on the back line. Like it feels like they have well, one, obviously the defensive ability, but two, the passing ability to justify playing this way. Vanessa Gilles, as far as I can tell, has just been like unreal in France. Um, like one of the best center backs in a very good league. And then you've got Kadisha Buchanan, who hasn't been doing quite as good with Chelsea, who's not starting quite as consistently. But like we've got two. Well, one, they're just talented center back, but two, like they can actually pass the ball. Mm-hmm. And like I think the foundation is very much there for a team that can, at the very least, keep playing in the frustrating, and I mean frustrating good, in the frustrating sort of way this team can play, that they can, to the extent that they can like frustrate their opponents.
Well, that's the thing. They definitely can frustrate the opponents. Is whether they can actually get results going forward. And
yeah,
and let's stay positive. Let's stay positive. But yeah, like you can be the hardest working team in the field and still lose a game. Luckily, the men don't have that problem. They're usually the worst team in the field these days and still losing games. But no, the women's team at their worst always has compete, minus that game against Australia. The World Cup game, that is, not the most recent two. The women's team always has compete, and they just don't always have finish. And I think a lot of people would agree with that the women's team are always competitive, and but they just aren't always scoring goals. And we used to say, well, at least Christine Sinclair is scoring goals. Well, she didn't even do that in the World Cup. So not to shit on her, not trying to shit on her by saying that, but now that excuse is out the window twice now. It's because she definitely ran out of gas in the World Cup this past summer, and now she's no longer on the team. So we got to find offense somewhere else, and we did in those two games against Australia in the international window. But that first game, from all accounts, was against a B squad, like a very, very B squad Australia. Like, not everyone has even been captain, I think, in that squad for that game in Langford. And then, it did feel a little retribution. I kind of wish that scoreline was reversed, because the team that Australia put out at CS Place was a bit closer to the one we lost to in the World Cup. Still, we won that game, so whatever. That is still a little bit of revenge there, and it helps us winning those two games in our national window. It's because there's a proper window, so we got the actual like FIFA points for it, so that does help in the long run, helps our standings, blah blah blah. But that game was a good example of where is the offense going to come from in Paris? Where's the offense going to come from in future friendlies against better teams, against the USA? We won the game 1-0, great, but we can't always just can't pull a Tokyo and scrape by games 1-0 all the time. And I think if you're a men's team, you'd gladly take that, but the women's team has been dominant for way longer and has actually won things and has actually deserved to be called one of the best teams in the world at times, the best team in the world, defending the Olympics coming up. We can't do the same as Tokyo and expect to win off a penalty late in the game and just park the bus for 25 minutes.
Definitely is concerning that um, when Viens is out, who hasn't even been particularly good with the national team despite her club form, um, we're sort of just throwing stuff at the wall, and strikers who don't even really score. I think that's definitely a bit concerning. Where like Nichelle Prince, I feel like she's not really a true nine, and then you've got Hoydema, who I this is one thing that sort of bothered me about women's coverage. There's this very persistent, and I guess we're getting all negative now, but there's this very persistent optimism that we have these young players and things are about to get so much better. And I feel like there's a certain reliance on people having not seen these players at club level to keep up this relentless optimism. Because I just it seems like Hoydema is getting a lot of starts, but I don't see this evidence of like this drastic improvement in her game and in the games of other forwards that make me believe like this team is going to be completely different in the near future.
No, and Heidema as a player, I think, has stalled quite a bit the last couple of years. She's still a very important player on the team, even when she's not scoring. But I think now that she's really not, again, working the game at field level, she's way taller than I expected. I've never really been at field level for most of the games I've worked. I'm usually a little higher up. But being at field level for this women's game, Heidema is like tall. She's very tall, and she's very imposing on the field when she's out there. And I feel like it's such an obvious thing to say when you're watching the game. She's not using that height a lot, even though that is her strength, as is often how she scores goals. She's not doing that anymore, and so I don't know what's changed. And she didn't really come out of nowhere, so they can't say she caught people by surprise by playing on the women's team. But yeah, she's stalled a bit the last couple of years in the last couple competitions where it's mattered, and still gotten a goal here or there. So like, okay, like sure she's finding a way, but I think she needs to be a star now, and maybe that'll come. Maybe the best is yet to come. There's still an opportunity, which is great because she's not old by any stretch. These are all very young players in this team, with the exception of a few, and now we've gotten even younger with these players retiring. So, I think there's a bit of a panicked optimism when it comes to the women's team because we know we can be good. We know we have the skill set. We know we have the players already and the players in the pipeline. But we have taken a step back as a team, so it's and they always prove us wrong. So I'm very much like let's wait and see.
Just the thing is like Hoydema's never had a scoring record, and we've been so insistent at playing her as a nine, but like it just hasn't happened so far. Not at club level, not at international level. So like if Jens is the only one scoring consistently at club level and she's not scoring for Canada, like I don't see where this improvement comes from. Yeah, I guess we
well yeah well we are talking a lot about the Olympics when really we should also be talking about the Women's Gold Cup, the new CONCACAF Women's Gold Cup coming up in February and March. And yeah. I'm just currently I'll get the image ready here. Maybe I'll share it in a second. But looking at their sort of group and their sort of path, I could see them making some noise in the Women's Gold Cup for CONCACAF. But this is I feel like this competition this is a big opportunity for the women's team, but also like for the Men's Gold Cup. I think now this competition has become almost like a warm up competition, if that's the right way to put it. Maybe those involved with the Gold Cup would say differently, but. I think this is more, in my mind, this is a great warm-up, regardless of the result, win or lose, for Paris. Now, I don't know if you'd agree with that statement, but...
I mean, it's a group we should probably win in the Gold Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, I'll get the image here ready, but you go ahead and finish your thought there.
It's Costa Rica, Paraguay, and Mystery Box.
Someone's got to win a prelim to get in there first.
Yeah, like it's hard to say how we're not like a top 3 team in that tournament, and I guess you have Mexico in there as well.
Well, it's crazy how some games get a little more nail biting than they used to for the women's team. And again, we talked is that just the women's game getting better across the board? And I think like the women's teams in general have just gotten better across here. I'll share the image right here.
Like it's a mixture of that, but also Canada being like a real. I mean, obviously, it's better than the was to the extent that like CONCACAF is competitive now. Like Jamaica progressing the way they did in the Women's World Cup, Mexico giving us a real run for our money.
Mm-hmm.
But also like it just feels like it's really hard to criticize. I'm sorry, my cat might break in again. It feels like it's very hard to criticize like the way the team plays without being crushed by this sort of relentless optimism in the media. And I don't know, maybe that's just a false perception I've got, but um, it would. I think it would just even be like more. It would just be like even a message more that like, we're taking the women team seriously when we have the capacity to criticize what's actually happening on the field. I don't know. This is all very vague, and I don't like just going on rants where I feel like I don't totally know what I'm talking about. So I'll pause that now.
Well, I feel like whenever we do a show is just one long rant about one different subject. So you can go on forever if you like. I mean, not a lot of people always talk about the women's team, so I'm glad we're at least talking about it.
Do you have like more? Is there anyone like you wanted to pinpoint that you saw from behind the net, or should I just keep going player by player?
Who did I see that really stood out to me? I mean, again, I repeat myself, Christine Clint Sinclair. It was great seeing her at field level because you get last game, so she probably had a bit more jump in her step, and maybe people weren't checking her as hard. But it was like, wow, like she was the best for a reason, and she's displaying it because she just like slows the game down and creates plays, and like she's getting beat a couple times and just couldn't. But there's a lot of 2-on-1s at times as well too. They're really focusing on her occasionally because she actually created chances. Yeah, I just really like the team's tenacity, just able again to push to sort of play and the few opportunities they had, but they're doing this thing again where they're just in the final third, and we can criticize both men's and women's teams of Canada. Final third, there's just something not there for both teams, and it just dies. No matter how good they are in transition, it just dies, and that was evident even in a friendly game. And I'll give Australia credit again; they had a better World Cup squad in that second game in Vancouver. But yeah, just I think the whole team just gels really well. But there's concerns there, and we've talked about them plenty.
Yeah, I can talk about a few more positives.
Yes, please. Yeah.
I thought Quinn was back to their usual good self. Haven't
Absolutely.
had a great season with the rain, but just an anchor in the midfield that game. And good reflexes to get on the end of that rebound. And then someone who I've been a fan of since the time at Benfica, and who's sort of like the really cool story of this team is Chloe Lacasse, who at one point was going to commit to play for Iceland when she was playing in the Icelandic league.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's just cool that this story exists now, like in women's soccer, that like you can this sort of like Scott Kennedy like story where you climb from like a team in Iceland up to Portugal up to playing in the Women's Premier League. And she's kind of for me in a lot of ways like a much less frustrating version of Leon. She just seems like much more effectively like to know where she needs to be, and to like be like Leon might be like a bit more of an exciting player, but Lacasse just got pace to boot, and I've been really impressed with her so far.
Yeah, no, we're definitely Canada's definitely not short on pace when it comes to the games recently, and that can just win you games alone. Honestly, we've seen teams before just like happen to get that in a scrappy game, get that one player and get behind everybody else and gets the only goal of the game. And it in a sense, it could have been a game very much like the final game Christine Sinclair played, where it really, if whoever scored first was probably going to win that game.
Her scoring record isn't like quite at the level of where it was at these lower levels in Iceland and Portugal, and that's probably going to be hard to replicate in England, especially where she's sort of been moved to the wing. But I think like that's at least one spot for optimism when it comes to our goal scoring record.
Yeah.
Like, I think she's a legitimately good winger. We have something there.
Mhm.
But yeah, I guess just to I feel like we said it too early in the segment, but I just these games are really nice. Like, it was a really nice gesture for St. Clair. But I'm worried I don't see a lot of evidence that this team's identity is shifting, and I feel like the discourse is going to get really negative when it doesn't. And I don't know.
Well,
That's just kind of sad.
like no, it's tough. Like yeah, we're definitely going to be under a bigger microscope now, and now that we have definitely have stars in the team, but stars that are easy to market now and easy to show. Like we don't have a superstar anymore. When we fail, we'll probably get less attention, but I think we might even get less attention now if we succeed, unless it's a trophy or a medal or something like that. Like I think if we win our group and win a quarterfinal and go out in the semis or something, we might do well in a tournament. How many people are gonna pay? I mean, we've definitely the fan base is grow. I saw it myself. Like the fan base for the women's team is huge now, bigger than it ever has been. So people are definitely gonna follow the team no matter what. But are we gonna get the attention we would have gotten with Sinclair still in the lineup, even if she wasn't contributing? It's a scary thought, but I think she's done her job, and hopefully the people still care, even though that she's not playing anymore, and somebody else can be that superstar. Not that no one's ever going to reach that same level, I think, on any national team, but here's
That's
hoping we do.
It's still thrown around way too much. Like the next Christine St. Clair, they'll just say it so casually in the commentators booth, and I don't know why.
Well, because they're looking for sound bites, they're looking for things to talk
yeah,
about.
I mean,
like,
I do know why, but it like I think whenever someone says that about Alfonso Davies, like they rightfully get shit for it, and I don't know. It's a very broad criticism, but it just feels like there's a lot of stuff you can kind of get away with, kind of sliding into an offhand remark.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be so casual, if that makes sense.
No. Well, we've discussed a lot about the great things and some negative things about the women's team. Do we dare to move on to the men's team now? Because I think we can leave the women's subject and actually have a bit of optimism, because they have competitive games coming up in the new year. They have things they can play for. They have the Olympics. Even though we're worried about the women's team, even though we are worried about the women's team, we actually have things to look forward to, and now we can look on the dark cloud that is the men's national team.
Just get your Biello take like right off.
I could do it right now. We're not getting a new manager. It's gonna be Biello in March. Like I maybe, and you know what? I wasn't even as negative. After that, there's some people who I thought were gonna jump off a bridge after that Jamaica match in Toronto. And just people, and you know what, I felt we talked really briefly about it. I had the same feeling after that Jamaica match as I did against Haiti in 2019, where I just sort of like sunk down and was like, I can't believe that happened.
Yeah, like it made me not want to engage at all.
There's longer Canada Soccer fans who are just that meme first time. They were probably looking at me like, of course it happened. It's Canada Soccer. So, and Haiti was a great preparation for what happened against Jamaica, because as soon as I saw the warning signs, which apparently the players in the field did not see coming, the warning sign that Jamaica was going to at least score one in the next few minutes here, the way they were pressing, the way Canada was kind of like doing nothing. I went. It's crazy. I can go from feeling pretty good for the first win in Jamaica since the 80s, a pretty solid game that we probably should have lost in Jamaica, like 4-1 or 4-2, to a span of 20 minutes of playing absolutely atrociously, to still lose a game on home soil at Jamaica, which to be fair, again, I'm not done on my rant yet, to be fair, Jamaica was a team we expected way more out of in the World Cup qualifiers for 2022 Qatar. We expected for sure, like, oh yeah, it's guaranteed USA, Mexico, Jamaica, and hopefully Canada is in a playoff spot or finishes third. And Jamaica did not deliver at all in the World Cup. So they took a step back briefly, and then Jamaica's a good team. Not as good as Canada. Even though we lost them, I still don't think Jamaica's as good as Canada. Jamaica's still a good team, and they proved it in 20 minutes to just destroy us, and then we just lost all gas, and then some really poor decisions by Biello at the substitution level. To be fair, I think he made those substitutions before we got scored on and never had a chance to correct his subs. So he made decisions based on defending the lead, and then all of a sudden we were chasing a game, and we didn't have the personnel in the field for it. But yeah, my hot take is that for that at least we can save it for the end, but talk about it more. But I don't think we're gonna have a different manager. I think Biello is still gonna be managing for the Trinidad and Tobago match.
I guess two things.
Yeah.
On one hand, it feels it's still hard to know what to make of Jamaica because you're right. Like on paper, there's probably an argument they have more talent than we do. If you just go over like all their best players and all our best players, but like until they got to us, that hasn't really shaken out against anybody. Like that talent was still there when they barely beat Haiti. That talent was still there when they got destroyed by Mexico in the Gold Cup by not even like a Mexican A team. So like it maybe you got to give some credit to their manager.
Oh, absolutely.
Whatever you think of Hallgrimsson otherwise.
Well, the first half, Canada was all over them, and to be fair, and I think the players even said it. Like Jamaica's goalie just made some really great saves. Like if he doesn't make all those saves and lets in, it's 2-0 at half, then yeah, I think the game is essentially over. Even though Haiti, I still think comes back and gets a couple. That goalkeeper making huge saves was the difference. Like he made huge saves, and you look at people on the outside. Well, you should score those. Like you're right, you should score those, but which is why it's so impressive that goalie made those saves. And then second of all, after the first half, their manager was like, okay, we got outclassed. Let's make adjustments at halftime, and their adjustments were evident in the first 5-10 minutes. And it was like, if we can get through to like the 70th without conceding, we're fine. And then like the 64th, we gave up the first one. I'm like, it's game over. Like they're coming now, and we can't adjust. And that's maybe not all Biello's fault, maybe not all the manager's fault. The players in the field definitely, and this is something I hate to agree with Gareth Wheeler on. But the players in the field did not. They're right. If Hutchinson was on the field and that started happening, would have calmed down immediately. Things would have been under control. But just the personnel on the field were not experienced enough to deal with that kind of shit, even though David and Davies and Borjan were there for that Haiti match, and they've been there for other collapses. No one stepped up and did anything about it, and that you can credit that a lot to the Jamaican manager for finding the weaknesses and going, yeah, okay, let's exploit them, and they did.
Yeah, for Biel, again, I feel like the fan base criticism of Biello isn't necessarily in the right place. It's always like the same kind of like cardboard cutout criticisms that get pinned to people when they're like very legitimate criticisms that make me not want to ever see him again. I don't like there's people who are very quick to say like he should have started Vittoria over Cornelius, and you can imagine like the reaction if Biello started Vittoria over Cornelius at home.
Even the commentators were saying after the Jamaica game, like, oh yeah, no, Vittoria probably won't start game 2 because they just don't normally do that in such a short window. He'll probably come on late, and that's kind of what they're aiming towards. It's like, so what's everyone upset about? That was kind of the plan, and everyone was fine with everyone. I think Cornelius is a great defender. He's just not quite there yet for Canada to be the number one guy. He got it really exposed too in this game, but people would have, you're right, they would have lost their shit if Vittoria started 2 games in a row and Cornelius didn't get the start. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, like, and people criticizing like the timing of the subs, or like the weirdest one I saw was people complaining about bringing Russell Rowe on when we were losing with 5 minutes left, as opposed to like another midfield. I don't know what the hell else we were supposed to do. For me that wasn't the problem. The problem in general was Biello just, for one, I was kind of pleasantly surprised that it kind of felt like Canada had an identity in this window, and sometimes identity is just like synonymous with we did well, but like it felt like there was sort of a plan, like to not necessarily force ourselves to build up from the back, to spray passes out to the wings with players who actually have the ability to do that. Like it felt like there was something there, and that kind of contradict my previous criticisms of Biello just kind of like throwing 11 against the wall and like not having much of a plan beyond like these are the best. These are who I think are the best players available.
Well, yeah, my only real criticism, even though it was a short window, especially because the first game got
I think it's
delayed.
mostly player selection. That was
Yeah,
my problem.
yeah, I think it just, especially like his lineup didn't change too much to game two, but changed enough where it's like, why don't you just stick with the 11 you just had success with? Like, sure, you were outplayed in the first half, but that's an away game in CONCACAF anywhere. Like, you're gonna get peppered depending on who you're playing. I was like, just stick with who you won with. Stick who you got the result. Like, bring in Cornelius maybe a bit sooner if you're feeling like the Victoria's legs can't handle it. Maybe bring him in at halftime. Maybe make the adjustments at half instead. But I'd say stick with the 11 who got you the win, and just go. Again, short window. So, and we're not professional athletes and we're not coaches, so we don't make those decisions. But stick with the 11 who got you the win right away, and then make the adjustments as it, because you're up and you take the advantage while you can, and then change it. And that would have sat better with people, but to change it for the sake of it, player selection not great.
Like for me, the scary part of like Cornelius Miller was legitimately scary to me because this is a center back pairing that has no height,
Yeah,
that can't really get up in the air.
yeah,
Like that was scary to me, but not because Vittoria should have started. It's because why the hell didn't we call McGraw?
yeah.
In the midfield, like
yeah.
when we're taking like an admittedly sort of rejuvenated Mark Anthony Kaye, like it's still not ideal. Why didn't we call Chouanier, like the actual MLS All Star this year? Why didn't we see any of Ali Ahmed, who's actually been consistently getting forward and not instead of like floundering Jonathan Osorio?
Well, this is the thing about results, right? Is that you stick with the guys who got you there, which makes sense, and it made sense the first game, and it made sense the first half of the second game, and then it just got exposed. And then I think if we ever get a new manager, which might be when we lose to Trinidad and Tobago, that's not a hot take. I don't think that'll happen, but who knows now. I think when we get a new manager, the best thing will be fresh set of eyes, which I think people are like, oh yeah, this golden generation. Like I saw like this golden generation, way to waste a golden generation. Like what golden generation? We haven't won anything. Like we have a great pipeline of players and more players coming thanks to the CPL and just like better player development and some better, I wouldn't say drafting, I mean, like signing players over to play for Canada. But yeah, just like hopefully this puts to bed like, okay, these guys got us there. It showed that we should probably get a fresh set of eyes on guys. Still stick with our big dogs. Don't just all of a sudden like not start Davies, but we just need someone to look at differently. And I love Osorio for what he's done for this country. I love Borjan for what he's done for this country. Definitely always keep Borjan on the squad, but Crépeau needs to start. I think Crépeau needs to start going forward, even though LAFC didn't win the MLS Cup. I still think that he's a great keeper. Yeah, it's crazy. Now it has to be, even when Biello coaches us in that Trinidad and Tobago game, we got to have a new look at some new players.
I think that's basically the thing. Like every time there was an important, he didn't necessarily start out his 11s like this.
Yeah.
But every time there was like an important or pivotal moment, Biello tended towards the brotherhood. Like he was very much invested in what Herman seemed to be invested in, and I think it was to his own detriment. Like it scares me that he should very much know like this is his big chance to impress. Like this is his chance to have a full-time job as manager of like what is still a really exciting young team, and to the extent that he was so conservative about it when he had the chance to like put his own mark on it.
Yeah, I mean, even just one player like you mentioned, McGraw. Like I think a lot of Canadian fans forgot about him in the short time since the Gold Cup. Like even though he didn't stand out like a superstar at the Gold Cup, he stood out as someone with size and height, and was one of the few players who actually was a threat in the box off of corners. Like I feel like I love Vittoria, Mr. Property Brother, but he's the only guy who actually has some sort of threat. And yeah, it's just we can hope that I'm wrong about Biello and they get a new manager, just for the sake of someone else to look at players and someone else to call up other guys and give other guys a chance without upsetting the whole balance.
The thing about McGraw is like we only ever played him as an outside center back, which he just isn't. He's slow. He's Vittoria. He's a snail.
Yeah.
But like in a mid two, as a middle center back, I think it could be totally different. But we don't know now because we didn't try it. And in that regard, Biello wasn't conservative at all in putting like these two not very tall center backs. And at the back, and it costed us.
Well, we definitely got
Um,
we definitely got bullied on our own end in the second half, and it's cruel for Biello, right? Because he had three good to if not very good halves out of the four he was in this window, but he the fourth one is what killed him, and then that's just it. He actually, if you were doing it for percentage wise, he had a pretty good grade. 3 out of 4 is better than good, but it just was not the one that mattered. And God, I hope they have a plan in place. But Canada Soccer, the organization, has just proven once over and over again, is just not competent in any sense. And I just hope and pray that they prove us all wrong.
when we talk about players who maybe we wouldn't like to see again, starting at least, um, I wonder how far like you or we would both go with that. Um,
Players we wouldn't want to see again or would want to see again.
wouldn't want to see again.
Wouldn't want to see again. Okay, yeah,
As
all
in our
right.
veterans, as in
Yeah.
you mentioned Borjan and Osorio, and I get like if you're really invested in leadership and you really think like um, taking away the veterans of this team is going to have like a tangible effect on the morale of the rest of the team or whatever's left of it when you look at reports. Um, I'm not even sure myself. Like, if Borjan's gone and if Osorio's gone, the core of this team is like ridiculously young.
Well,
And I don't know if
that's when
there's
people mistake selecting these guys as like some sort of favoritism or something like that. Like, sure, the skill may not be there for Borjan, but Borjan is undeniably a huge leader in glue. He's Elmer's man. He's a glue guy on this team no matter what. And that's
yeah.
why I would say you can almost never not select him. And if he says he's good to start, you kind of go, okay, man, like you've earned the right to make that call yourself. And I'm sure Crepeau and him have that relationship. You even see it at like beer league level. Like the best players shouldn't always get the start and shouldn't always get the call, but they've been on the team and they're great to have out in the team. They may play two shifts, but they got to have them out there. Got to play, or else like someone will get upset, and you don't know what the relationship is between like if Borjan's not called up and not starting, like what's you don't want to upset the whole team dynamic just because of that. And people like he's such an easy scapegoat because of his blunders, the Borjan blunders, but he's also a huge part of the team. We don't know he could be a huge part of the team and why they're such a the whole brotherhood bullshit. It's could be real, and it's because it could be a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, um, yeah, like I don't exactly know what the perfect answer is.
I would say
Um,
so, I would just say we gotta stop. Osorio came and did his job in Jamaica. He came in like kind of killed those like when he came out last like 20 minutes. Definitely should have scored a goal. I don't know what he was thinking when he had that one sort of like 2-on-1 essentially and just sort of decided to pass it. I understand the thought process, like, nah, man, just power it. If the goalie saves it, then whatever. Um, but I think we need to move on from Osorio. That's one player I can say confidently I wouldn't want to see again in the starting 11, and maybe not even as like a super sub. If it came on in the final 10 minutes of a game to protect a lead, I wouldn't be upset. But I think in even those moments, like there are other players who are much younger and less experienced, but they bring. I think they can't be. They're not worse than Osorio, so you might as well have them out there to get those experience moments.
and literally, like Samuel Piet is probably a better option than Osorio if you
I
want to
I
be
would much rather Piet, even honestly, as much as I respect Hutchinson and love him, and I think he would have been a game changer if he was still playing against Jamaica. I maintain Piet probably should have started over Hutchinson against Croatia, and even though Piet is not in the same skill level, I think he's better suited. He's better suited for the job sometimes, and I think he would have been much better to bring on at certain points. And he's like a disrespected player in a sense where there are players who are better than him, so obviously he shouldn't get the start. But I don't know, man. Now it's like if you're literally putting Osorio on to like help preserve a lead or put up Piet. He's much more suited for that.
Yeah. I think I kind of lean towards like playing your best 11. I think I'd take Crepeau over. I I just can't. I don't think Borjan's benefits outweigh the fact
Yeah,
that like
now
he's playing Slovakia now.
Yeah, now
Uh,
especially, I think it was too bad that we ended up losing this game for a lot of reasons, obviously. But I think one of them too is now it's like okay, I think now everyone has to officially move on from Milan Borjan as our starter, and the problem is again with Biello if he's still managing in March, which he probably will be. If Borjan says like a starting goalie, like hey, no, I'm starting, you're like yeah, okay, you're in. Like if he says he's still good to play, he's going to get the start, and that's just it. And I'm sure they have that relationship with Sinclair, Crepeau, whoever else they call up. They're like, oh, Borjan's the guy. If he says he's in, he's in.
Yeah, like the best 11 in this team probably doesn't have anyone over 30.
No, probably
and
not.
like that's something you got to take into consideration for people who like radically want to rip out every veteran. And I'm closer to you guys than I am to the opposite of that.
And too many guys play FIFA, and just like as soon as a player turns 30 or 31 in FIFA, they automatically transfer list them or don't renew their contracts because they're 30 in sports is viewed as ancient, and it's unfortunate fact to a certain degree. Sometimes it's not incorrect, but yeah, there's some really bad hot takes out there for some of the older players who still deserve a shot on this team, but just like, yeah, I think Osorio's got to be the first one you cut.
So yeah, like I'll be mad if it happens again, but I'll be nuanced. I don't know if you saw the potential coaching replacements video I put on the
I did
channel.
see it. Yeah, I did see it.
Okay, that was a strange way. Anyways, yeah, I'm not sure if you have a take on that for like realistic-ish potential replacements.
I don't have an opinion on realistic replacements because I have no idea what they're going to do. Who can they afford? Who can they get out there?
Yeah.
Who's going to take
I would bet on the field as like who's going to be the next head coach. Like over everyone I put in the video, I would say it's someone not even on that list who's going to take an interest.
And you know, like I believe it when they say there's a huge lineup of applicants, because regardless of the performances as of late with Canada, even though they've had some good ones, it's not like they are the worst team. Like, oh God, who would want to come here and coach us? It's like, well, regardless of how bad we're playing right now, we still have two superstars, like in legitimate superstars in Davies and David, and then you have Kone, and you can add in a few of the guys who are kind of on the rise in stock. And sure, like it's one of those things. Yeah, they're not the best players in the world on their team, but they're still great players. Yeah, there's going to be good managers out there, good to really good managers who want to coach a team with just those guys on this team alone. But then you get to the politics of Canada soccer, you get to the money, you get to so many things that it's just like I don't even know who could do it. And they've talked about, you know, recently, I think the most recent rumor was the Panama head coach, which I wouldn't be upset at because he's consistently made Panama a good team. Whether that's always him, but you know what I mean. Like Panama is always still a threat. I think they did quite well at the World Cup, considering they're like the last team to get in from CONCACAF. So yeah, I can't even take a guess at who our manager would be because so much at play. I would not be surprised if it was, you know, anyone.
I will even say like I might have been a little too pessimistic in that video. I like scoffed at the time at the idea of like Wilfred Nancy or some MLS coach being willing to come and coach for us. But if you actually look at the salary, what John Herman was receiving, supposedly $500,000, which is more than I think most MLS coaches get. So maybe it's like more plausible than I realized. And obviously we both take Nancy now.
Yeah.
But I can't help but feel like we're going to be disappointed no matter who it is, because there's at least the people I had in the video, like there were really no great options that would make you feel really good. If I'm just gonna do a quick recap of that, because
do it
because we have 10 minutes anyway. I feel like for everyone who wants like Bobby Smirniotis, I'll say like one, I would take him over Biello, but there are so many comparable coaches who had success in USL or like equivalent levels to CPL, who go to the next level and then they get their heads rammed in and they're on the blacklist and we don't want anything to do with them. Like no one wants Mark DeSantos right now, even though like he did really well in USL and NASL, like equivalent or higher levels compared to CPL. So like I don't feel great about like a CPL coach, at someone who's never coached above that level, making such a huge jump.
We shouldn't be surprised if we get someone like that. Like no one should be surprised by any candidate that comes through, because I have a feeling more likely to happen is this scenario where it's someone who's succeeded at a lower level, quote unquote, and is on the rise. So it looks sexy on paper. Like, look, he's done well at USL and he's done well at this, or, you know, blah blah. Like, don't no one should be surprised, and if that's the most likely, where it's a new sexy coach coming up from the ranks, like we should all be excited. It's like, no, we kind of want the opposite as a fan base, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it just sucks like that. Eventually, if you do well at one level, you get blacklisted when you don't do well at the next level. It's kind of sad. Maybe that's the argument for Biello. Um, and then I guess the sexiest one everyone's throwing around is Christensen, like you mentioned earlier, who I would personally be my number one choice in the realistic list.
Yeah,
That we
out of the candidates that we've heard rumors for, verified or unverified, he seems maybe the most realistic, but the most like, okay, yeah, sure, I can see that, and I'm okay with it. Most importantly, that decision does not make me upset. Even though some people I saw online were like saying no, we don't want him. He's not the reason why Panama's successful. It's like, well, he's got to have some hand in it. So if you hire him, that's your problem.
I guess the reason I'm not like all in on that is one, Panama just plays a really different football than we do. I think he's proven that he's good at grinding out results against other grindy teams. Like definitely grinded Costa Rica to bits. But I'm not sure he's demonstrated that he can coach a team like Canada that's more on the front foot. And I think that's two completely different systems, and that's something you have to think about. That's the first thing. The second thing is he has experience coaching at basically the same club level as Biello for like a mid championship team, and then I think in the second tier of Belgium, and he got sacked both times.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't do good at the same level as Biello. So basically, the argument for Christensen is all recency. It's this confidence that he's found another self, or that he was in bad positions in England and Belgium. And personally, he'd be my number one pick, but it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect.
No, no one's gonna be happy with who we hire. That's just, we could go on and on about it, but no one's gonna be happy with who we hire, and we should expect it to be anybody. I mean, we might get Carlo. Remember, everyone's just so pumped about getting Carlo as our coach.
Right.
It's not gonna happen, but you know what? If that did happen, I'd be like, okay, cool.
I guess kind of just to match the whole vibe we started off with, I have like existential level concern questions. And I guess the first one is Alphonso Davies. I think it's been a few times now where, or it's been a while now where like we're confident Alphonso Davies is our best player. We're confident we can play him as a winger, and even if that's not his position at club level, he's so fast, he's so skilled. He's going to be really effective at it. He's going to be consistently our best player. And I feel like so often for Canada, that just hasn't been the case. He showed that he probably isn't a winger. And there's a reason, despite all his lobbying with Bayern, despite the fact that he might be making a move just for the sake of playing higher up the pitch. It's worrying, like the guy who's supposed to be our best player so consistently struggles against these low blocks and against these teams who commit to stopping him.
Yeah, it's tough because you expect him to have every game to have these flashes, and he does, like more often than not. But he gets shut down a lot these days and recently, and it's hard to say. Well, is it because he's not playing with as good a team? I mean, that argument could be like, because Canada. If you put Canada against maybe Byron's lineup, we're probably not beating Byron's lineup, and they just have world class players on there. So maybe it's just, even despite how good our players can be and play as a team, he needs someone else to work off of too. He doesn't always have that with Canada. And we see that when he does hero ball, when we start losing a game or the game starts getting tight, so he's trying to do everything himself. Because he feels like he has no one to go to. It feels like he has to do it all himself because he's got the pressure of Canada, but also like, well, no one else on the team can do it, so I got to do it myself. I don't watch a lot of Byron, so I don't know how much he does hero ball. It would be interesting to see a comparison. Well, that's the thing. So I don't know. Like, he is our best player by a long shot, but he probably doesn't have the confidence that he can make those plays with his Canadian teammates, and so he tries to do everything himself, and that's what gets exposed when he gets shut down, because guys, okay, well, he's not going to pass it, so we'll just put two on him, and he's not going to make that play.
The thing is there evidence that he's our best player by a long shot when he wants to be a winger and when he wants to be the winger? on our team, and it sounds weird to say it, but these performances are kind of stacking up. He was good in the first half against Jamaica,
Yes.
but at home. But these performances are kind of stacking up where he kind of gets the ball and he's not on a great pitch, and there's two defenders on him, and he kind of runs into a corner, and then he doesn't have the ball anymore.
Yeah.
And I think the very scary possibility with Davies is that Bayern did exactly the right thing with him. That he's the best luxury left back in the world, who, when you have 70% of the ball already, it's, oh shit, here comes Alphonso Davies, one of the fastest players in the world down the left flank. And when you're Bayern Munich and you have 70% possession, that's really good to have.
Yeah.
But when you're Canada and he actually has to get around people, and most of the pitch isn't like committed to the middle, he's not. It doesn't seem like he's able to be as effective. And if he's not that level of player for Canada, then I think that's like a real wrench in our whole philosophy.
Well, we could tie, like, again, if a new manager comes in with a fresh set of eyes, he could maybe have that discussion with Davies. And again, we don't have the actual behind the scenes, but if it is an actual discussion, to say, like, on Canada, you're a left back as well, and we just you're our best player. You're going back to left back, Mr. Davies. Like,
but then the question becomes like, what wingers do we have that we're going to play Davies behind? Like, would he do as well as a left back on like a lower team in Germany, where he constantly has to defend? And I don't know the answer to that. Like, is he really going to be the best left back in the world behind Liam Miller, behind Junior Hoylett? Like, I'm not sure.
Well, I would be interested to see it at the very least, right? Because it seems like we get exposed defensively, and it's mostly through the middle. Like, and I will give Canada credit that the goal they conceded in Jamaica was bullshit. I mean, should have been blown down as soon as it went in the back of the net. Say, no, I didn't start the play. Like,
just block it all out.
That's not, that goal's not their fault. But it seems to be our biggest problem is defense. And so I, as a fan who has no input at all on how they make these teams, I think it's worth putting in a shot and putting Davies on the back end again, and just like shore up the defensive end, at least on the outside. And, we hopefully won't get bullied off the ball as much, even though it happens a little further upfield when Eustáquio was looking for a call off the first goal Jamaica scored. Yeah, that's his fault. I know people want to shit on Borjan for the keepy uppies, but it's Eustáquio looking for a foul. Yeah, Eustáquio is our best player, and he was the best player this year, and he deservedly so. But
MNT Player of the Year, Stephanie.
That goal is 100% on Eustáquio.
No, it was good. And he just scored an own goal in Champions League too.
Yeah, he's having a rough
time. He's like one of their best players. Porto fans just keep hating him, which just kind of hurts my soul.
I think Porto fans also don't like him because he's probably playing for Canada. There is a bit of bias when it comes to North American players still.
Yeah, I think it's for Porto fans. I actually think it's more about like they want literally everyone to be a South American wonder kid, and there's like and you get shit on if you're like from a lower Portuguese team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
none of that surprises me. But yeah, I'm in favor of a new manager for new eyes, if for nothing else, but to find out where best to put Davies, and then watch, because I gave him a hard time in the World Cup for not scoring that penalty, but I did say watch, he will make up for it, and he 100% did. And so maybe against Trinidad, even though it is Trinidad and Tobago, we shouldn't be too concerned with them, but we should be watch him score a hat trick or something like that. Watch him prove me wrong again, or prove that he will show us up. He'll score a hat trick as a winger or something like that, and we'll go, okay, great, he's back. Davies is back, and he'll do something else great the following game. We won't be concerned, and then he'll do something really stupid for 3 games in a row. Will be completely unnoticeable, and then we're like, well, great, Davies is the worst player. And so with both women and men's teams, there's so much unknown. But at least, like I said, when we finished off talking about the women's team, we could be cautiously optimistic. With the men's team, I have no idea what to expect.
Wait, can we go over the hour, or do you want to end?
Yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep going.
This is my last existential question.
Yes.
Do you think like we just kind of won the lottery with Davies and David when you look at our prospect pipeline now? Like, is it possible we're just like in the 1 in 100 world where we got these 2 shinier prospects that we have a right to have, and now like we're going to be reverting back to like 2010? Like, do you think that's possible?
No, I don't think we're going to step back that badly as an organization. I mean, did we get lucky? I think the argument could be made that the most likely answer is yes. I think we did get lucky by getting someone else. But I think the argument can be made for a lot of teams for a big period of their existence about getting, great superstar players who led middling teams. I mean, like, you go look at Argentina, even though they've been a great team for a long time, like Maradona, I wouldn't say he came out of nowhere, but like he was the team for the longest time, and he was the reason why they won games. It was a handball. It was a handball against England. I hate to, and everyone knows it. But not to compare Maradona and Davies, but you know what I mean. Like teams get lucky in having these guys come through, and most other federations do have better grassroots development to do. I would say the majority of the FIFA teams, especially in Europe, have better grassroots than we do. So they find consistently across the board better, stronger players. But there is a lot of luck involved. There is a lot of luck. Like who knew that David Beckham would be who he was? Like how impactful. People knew he'd be a great player, but who knew how great he truly was going to be? That's got to be a little bit of luck to have these superstar players. Again, not comparing Beckham and Davies at all, because Beckham is worlds and heads and shoulders better than Davies, I think, ever will be. But the same comparison, you got to get a little lucky to have some of these players with this natural talent, and we definitely got lucky. But I think because of that, we will start seeing a stronger team. And I don't think we're going to revert back, because now we're seeing players playing, maybe not all in England and Europe, but we are seeing them playing in higher divisions across the world. And that is sort of the effect I think that they're having. But also, Larea wasn't because Davies, and he's a really great player, and he's playing high level. Like Junior Hoilett for a long time played at a good level, not so much anymore, but he still played a good level. Like we have players who play, like Eustáquio is not just because of Davies. So
I guess counter argument. Like, who are our best prospects right now?
Oh,
like
you can say that better than I can. I mean, unfortunately, I don't think we have a lot.
It was a rhetorical question. It's Ismail Kone, and then who else after that? You have to have a lot of confidence that, however you say his name, oh boy, like Luke de, how do you say Fugu? Is it Fuggerol? I don't know how to say it.
Defoe, who he plays for Fulham.
Yeah, the one that everyone invested time in complaining about that didn't appear.
Why didn't he get a start? Why didn't he get a start? Well, you got to cap him 3 times anyway, so not that he could have capped him.
So like, are you that confident that he's going to solve our backline in the future? Like, this is all rhetorical. Are you that confident that Jamie Knight-Lavelle is going to solve our backline in the future? Like, and then after that, it's like Ali Ahmed, Nathan Saliba, Bombito. I don't know. It gets scary to me, and I've always said this. Like, anyone who tries to make like a 2026 World Cup squad prediction, like even now, it's ridiculous. Like, there's people we don't know about who might be playing in like U Sports, who might be playing in NCAA.
No, there's so many unknowns for every. I mean, you can do it especially for Canada, but for so many teams, like what's it going to look like in 2 years? Someone going to come out of nowhere. Someone's going to commit. We never thought would commit. Someone has a grandma born in Toronto that we never knew about, and now he's decided because he doesn't want to take the Tomori route and get shelved by England. What an idiot!
By the way, that took up a day of Canada soccer Twitter. There was some guy who made up that some Algerian guy was Canadian, and that was like a whole day on Canadian soccer.
Yeah, see, I said it, and I said sometimes I hate our fans. God, our fans are brutal.
Yeah,
but it's hard to predict. I don't think we're ever going to have the same players with the same impact as David and Davies, but I don't think we're going to regress to a point like we were around 2008 to 2014. Like, I don't think we're going to reach those depths. I think as a squad and an organization, both the men and women's teams are going to get stronger, but will they be as strong as they were heading into the World Cup? I don't know. Probably not, but I think we're going to still be a competitive team.
I guess we're fortunate in the sense that, like, we should have Davies and David for 10, 15 years at least.
Well, yeah, and the beautiful thing about this World Cup is that we don't have an actual qualification process now. We're in, so the longer we can play games that matter, the better. And so we have, in a bad way, it's too bad we didn't win those games against Jamaica because we'd have more games to play for. But in a way, we now have 2 years to sort of figure out who that squad's going to be. We know we're going to play in that tournament. We know we're going to have meaningful games in that tournament, regardless of how well we do. So we got 2 years to start playing for it. So bring
So
back
in
Mo Farsi on the team.
Yeah, and Mo Farsi, please actually do play for us.
Yeah, please, please.
Yeah, in conclusion, please beat Trinidad, because obviously a powerful CONCACAF team would never lose to Trinidad. Well,
I mean, God bless you, Trinidad and Tobago, for beating the USA and Trinidad and Tobago
yes,
and ruining the World Cup chances. What a great
no, but they did it again, right?
Yeah, they beat them. Yeah, they
Yeah.
did that. Yeah.
And Alvin Jones scored another screamer again. It was great.
I
It was
I
really funny. Like the day before we lost, it was like a real. It was the best.
well
Then it got less funny.
well I there's again like there's no there's no reason we should lose this game. Honestly, like I think even with our B squad, I don't know, I shouldn't go that far, but I think even without a couple of players in our lineup, we should beat them. But the problem is now we planned it. We don't have any competitive games before then. They have to, at the very least, Canada Soccer has to schedule a friendly in that same window prior to playing Trinidad and Tobago. They have to get some competitive games. There's a non-official FIFA window in January, which every year was called Camp Poutine. I think the last one we had was when we played Iceland behind closed doors or something like that. And I think we played Barbados twice before that. Like, I don't care. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't care what players we come to that camp. We don't have any official windows before then, so we should win that game. I don't think it should be much of a even if we win 1-0 with an own goal. Like, we should win that game no matter what. But now the seed of doubt.
Might be going up against Luke Singh, Andre Rampersad, and Ryan Telfer.
Yeah, watch out.
And Malcolm.
But
we
they
shouldn't lose it.
The good thing is that the game isn't in Trinidad, and I truly believe these CONCACAF teams really play. The field is not the bad fields aren't a great excuse for me to lose games, but it is an excuse. Those fields are atrocious, and it plays totally into the home team's game. So at the very least, we're playing in a proper field in a proper stadium against a middling team, because often those teams find ways to get results on really bad, small, cramped fields, which I can't believe CONCACAF and FIFA are still allowed to exist. But, at least we're playing on a proper field. So that excuse will be out the window for if we do lose that game. But now the field is truly... exactly. It's truly a level playing field now. We should win this game, but now who knows?
Sorry, I'm going too long about
keep
this.
Going.
Their best players don't even tend to show up for them, which is kind of sad. Like, they've got... Levi Garcia, AK, and they have my favorite piece of trivia is Trinidad has a guy who played in Champions League in the last 3 years, and no one can name him, but it's Keston Julian. He
was there.
Yeah, he played he played for that Moldovan team when they beat Real Madrid. That was great. Don't lose to Trinidad, and the women's team should go and win the Gold Cup. They should do it.
Please,
that's what I would do.
Please get a semi in that competition. At least get a semifinal berth. Like, I think there could be positives taken if they fall short of that, but I think it would be a successful tournament for them to get to the semifinals.
Or like, don't lose to Mexico. That would be bad. Like, U.S. Brazil, but don't lose to Mexico. Yeah, that's what I would do. I would do that if I were them. I would just not lose.
Yeah, just don't lose those games. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I think we've a very successful show to end 2023. 2024 worries me because if we do lose to Trinidad, we go even longer without any competitive matches. We missed the whole Copa, and it's a very real fear. It's months away for the men's fans. At least the women have competitive games in February and March. The men have one game, and if they lose that game, which could happen, they don't play another competitive game that means anything until the following year, 2025. Like,
I don't even know.
They have obviously that
block everything out until it actually happens.
Yeah, but this is why Canada needs to get their stuff together and get a manager. I'm almost at this point where I don't care who it is, preferably not someone rising through the ranks of the USL, but if they just get someone new to give it fresh eyes, God, wouldn't that be nice?
Well, if I had to bet, I would agree with you. I think it kind of leans toward, because it's hard to imagine someone's going to step in by March for me. So then that leaves Biella till then, and if he doesn't lose to Trinidad, they're not going to kick him out.
Yeah, if he beats Trinidad, which again should happen, if he beats Trinidad, he's got the job through all the way through Copa. So
yeah, thank you for coming on, James, and now you say the thing.
thank you for having me a guest on my own show.
So glad you remember it still. All right.
I got a great memory. All right, good show.
Good show.